Here we go.
I gotta start the intro again. Okay, one more time. Welcome to our webinar series. Tonight we have Milena Din, our diversity coordinator. We are talking about building partnerships with families in our community, being inclusive of all families in our community. It's how to build parent engagement between schools and parents for academic success. Welcome, everyone. If you have any questions, I think what we're going to do is try to answer questions towards the end. So please, as we continue, to go on, if we're coming down to the end of this webinar, you can type in your questions. Melina, I'll make sure to read and throw them out to you if that's fine. Or if you want, I can, if something is relevant to what you're talking about, I can throw something out then. You let me know. You want end or during?
It depends if it's really relevant to the conversation that we're having, and
Okay.
then yes, throw it in, because then it's a good opportunity to chime in.
Okay, so we'll freestyle a little bit. I'll try to get some going during and then get some towards the end. This webinar should be ending a few minutes before 8:30. I hope everyone enjoys it. Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. All right, Melina, it's off to you.
Thank you, Antoinette and Amy, for um, working with this webinar and making sure it happens. Welcome to every single person who is joining us, and hopefully this can go out there to many people, and we get many responses, questions, inquiries, which I think are so very important to build partnerships and relevant, solid partnerships. So, how to build parent engagement between schools and parents for academic success. Um, I think that's something that we all want to talk about, not just from the diversity or cultural point of view, but as a whole. It is really important that this is built. Schools must partner with parents and communities for successful student outcomes. Each one bears responsibility to students in a different way, and together they can break barriers success and succeed in providing the tools and support students need to succeed. It is vital um, that schools partnership with parents, they're the first contact that they have for students. They come into the classroom. Relationships are built first with the teachers, and you start something when you do that. And that first impression, that first contact is so very important. And before that, during the summer, before school starts, you have messages that come through the leadership of the district, and those are even more important because that's the basis of beginning your partnership. Each one bears the responsibility to students in a different way. The school bears the responsibility to communicate, and as parents, we bear the responsibility to make sure our children are present. So together, if we are together, then those barriers can be broken that are there, but we can build a relationship. So what does it take to build a partnership? Well, teamwork, effective communication from school to home. Those are really the basis of becoming effective. And I think that when we think of how to build a partnership, it becomes overwhelming because we don't know what to do. Well, I really believe that school bears the bulk of that responsibility because they have to be the initiators. They are in the business of educating our children, and they have to come up with sort of ways to be able to engage. And many school districts have an issue about schools getting parents to participate in many ways. Maybe that needs to be broken down into maybe a toolkit, a way, sort of a system in which you can approach parents and they can approach you. You can break certain barriers and then build a trusting relationship. It doesn't come easy, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's the beginning. You have to start somewhere. So the school bears bulk of that responsibility because they're the ones that communicate everything that's happening in school, when school's going to start, when what's going to be happening during the year, welcome back to school, parent-teacher conferences, other events. And all those are built for a reason, to build opportunity for parents to come in. The school leadership takes the lead in this path to parent engagement because they initiate most of the communications that goes to the parents and home. The teachers build a different relationship because it's an immediate and the closest that you have. The teachers and staff build the bridge through direct contact with the parents. So that's really, really important. So there's two facets. The leadership of the district builds a relationship, but our children's direct contact is the teacher. And those are different relationships. To develop engagement in schools, parents must work together. You have parental engagement, you have raising the achievement, effective communication, parents as partners, and strategy for engagement. Let's talk about parent engagement. When parents, it has been scientifically proven that when parents are engaged in their children's learning, it brings better opportunity for them to be successful in school, to be present, and to do all the many things that we can encourage them to do. So how do we do it as parents? I mean, we work, we go to school, we do many, many, many things. And there is time restraints, there's life restraints, there's many things that happen. But we have a few things on our side, which are meaningful communication between home and school. I mentioned before, our first line of communication is the parent and the teacher, student and teacher. That has our initial building of a relationship. We build that. We got that. So that is very, very, very important. The responsible parenting must be promoted and supported. Responsible parenting is making sure that our children are in school, that they're in school on time, that they are doing their homework. We bear that responsibility. It's our duty, right, as parents, to make sure that our children are doing what they are committed to do in school. And the meaningful communication comes into play when that's happening between home and school. The achievement of student increases when parents are actively involved in their learning process. When I decided to do this webinar, I was really thinking about, we need to talk about bringing in diversity, but the diversity that is brought on, it's really by how the inner workings of what happens in school. So, and parents, how do we function? How do we deal with what is happening at school with our children? How we get communicated? All the many ways that I was thinking, it's no different, regardless of whether you're ethnic in an ethnic group or not. We're all different, and we need to find the ways in how we can just bring us as parents together. That doesn't change, it remains the same. Other barriers need to be broken in the process, but that is a process. Parents welcome as volunteers in school. Many schools utilize parents when they're able to volunteer, whether it's through lunch or in the classroom, in many ways. And that is one way in which parents can not only contribute to the school if they're accepted to do so, but also they learn what happens in school when children are in certain classes, when they're at lunch, when they go to art, when they go to gym. You see them in the hallways. There is a whole different interaction of what's happening, not just with the kids in the classroom when going to classroom, but their inner interaction as well, and what happens in the different classrooms. Parent, school, and community must collaborate to enhance student learning and strengthening families to improve school. When we have parents and schools and community in sync working together, it enhances the students' learning. I think I was really thinking about that in the sense that when we have schools, the families, and they're part of a community, they really work together, the school, the parents, and the community, um, so that they support each other in their calendars and activities and what they build together. Do they sit down and communicate? Do they talk to each other and work so intricately together to make sure that they back each other up, so that because the families are going to know each other, they're going to do many things together, participate in many things, and their children, whether it's sports or a particular event at the school. So if they work together, that strengthens that community. And having the parents as full partners in the decision making process, it's also very important because it allows the parent to feel important, that what they think, what they perceive is important for enough to be inclusive in the decision process of the school. It could be something very simple as, changing something in the school or adding something to the school, and getting that perception and opinion of the parents is also important. Raising the achievement is what we said, what I talked about in terms of our responsibility. Raising the achievement is having high expectations for our child, and we should have that every day. Maybe that should be the goal always. Start with the high expectation, making sure that students are in school every day on time, making sure they do their homework, supporting them when they're struggling, establishing communication with the teacher. That's really important because we always talk about the success of our children, and sometimes they struggle. Sometimes they have a moment when they don't get something, and being really involved means sending a note to the teacher or writing a note. Some of the teachers will text you. Um, you know, the ways of communicating have really changed to our advantage. And if they partake in it, it's wonderful because then you can communicate. Even with a simple note, you can do that. I know I do that many times when my daughter, who's in the lower grades, I have a question, I'll just write a note to the teacher. With middle and high school, many teachers prefer a phone call or an email, and you can do that. Or you want to talk about your child or the classroom, what's happening inside a particular class, whether it's behavior, whether it's the material, whatever might happen, establishing that, contact is really, really important. And talking to your child about school, what happened during the day, what they enjoy doing, what they don't like, or, sometimes they talk to you, sometimes they don't give you much information. Give them confidence to achieve the best that they can be. So these are sometimes things that we get lost in the moment, and we don't talk about with our children. Communication. Communication means the exchange of information between two people. Um, Parents and teachers consider communication the number one factor. Actually, I read a couple of parent engagement and school engagement, community engagement toolkits that I actually took a lot of stuff from. One was from the United Kingdom, one from America, and one from Scotland and some other place in Europe. So they were all expressing the same things. Parent and teachers consider communication the number one factor to increase trust. You have to build a trusting relationship. And I think that's really hard to do. It creates discussion on progress as well as realistic goals for your child. One of the things that I read the most about was, and it's not just changing in our nation, but worldwide, is the increasing integration of parents from different cultures, different countries, and languages. And this is all part of what happens in the classroom now, as well as your economic diversity. Um, it's all inclusive of what we call diverse. And they're dealing with all of these issues in the classroom. So how parents are approached varies in how the teacher establishes that relationship, which is really, really important. So we can do our part of as parents in knowing that those are the expectations, that the schools want us to be involved, but many parents do not know that it's okay to be involved. So in that case, the responsibility really lies on the school to approach the parents and sort of building a program, a toolkit, a way of being able to approach the parents. Teachers are the first line of communication for parents. So establishing that, I think, is the initial step. And I really think that that's important because a teacher can send that message or make the parent feel comfortable enough to for you to be able to approach them, or for them to approach you, ask you questions, and say, let's talk about your child. And also in diverse communities, that would include having materials, translators, things that the parent can utilize and the teacher to be able to communicate together. And we'll probably see or seeing a lot of that in schools right now, probably all over. Communicating is the most important element in establishing a relationship with parents, families, and community. That is really the greatest tool that we have. The plan would be a plan in utilizing communication um, to get to parents, to be able to communicate with them. The second part of this is building an understanding of family and community engagement, building a cultural bridge, building trusting relationships with families and community through effective communication, engaging parents and community in data conversations. I think these are really important factors to examine in each district. I think when you sit down and think about who goes to your school, who lives in your community, what do they look like, where do they go, where do they live, what aptitudes they have, it really is wide. There's a huge range. And those are things that we need to examine. Building an understanding of family and community is a first step. What we believe can influence how we support families and community. Um, Everyone has a belief system, and that belief system can influence how you communicate with someone. So, how we support families and community is really important based on what we believe and what influences we have. Understanding the demographics of our community is important in understanding the needs of our families. And that's refers to what I just said before, understanding who lives in our community, in our school community. The age range, the races, the background, the economic diversity, the professional diversity. These are all important things. And the cultural groups that we have within our community. How does that influence our school district? And that can give you a really good snapshot of everything that's happening in your community. And the influence of culture, of course, influences our actions and behavior. but when I mean by culture, yes, it could be ethnic, but it's just our own personal build of culture, what we believe, what we think, all of these things influences our actions and behaviors. And that's part of what we need to look at a community as well, because certain groups may are influenced by their culture. And deep cultural beliefs can influence parent participation in schools. Um, that's also something that we need to look at, because when we take these pieces apart in a community, it can help you give you a better understanding of what your community looks like. Aside from the physical demographic, it gives you the deep cultural, what they are about, what they feel, and where they come from. And some of that may influence their ability to participate in school, not because they may not want to or not value the education that their children are getting. Is just that they may not see it the same way we do. This is an activity of questions that groups of parents in the school can do together, and as part of their community, they can do together by putting themselves as a group. And they can answer these questions together. They can be in groups, and they take a piece of paper and answer these questions, and then interchange ideas in regards to this activity, which I find it really good. You may come up with great answers that come across this. What is family engagement? What does family want? What do families want to engage in? And what can school do to increase engagement? And what prevents families from engagement? These are really good questions to ask, because it will give you a range of answers, and you may find out reasons why people are not coming into the school in the community, families, parents, um, or give you ideas or what they believe engagement is. And those can be gathered together, and it can give you a form of conversation, if you will, between the parents. Families and communities building a cultural bridge. As our communities become more diverse and educators, we need to understand the characteristics and strengths of each community. It goes beyond, obviously, basic communication that you're giving from school and community. It's getting to know family stories, and to support their success. Getting to know the strength within your community and their weaknesses as well, can help you determine how to alter certain things in your school community. Um, I'm gonna give an example. For example, if you have parents who are in rural areas, and one of the things that is probably relevant for them is distance and resources. Um, but if you can bring them together, they will all feel that they want the best for their child, the education, and they can communicate verbally with each other in terms of what they would like as far as resources for their school or for their children, to be able to have more access to things. They may not have the same access as other students may have in the state, because they may feel they live so far removed. Other kids may have the same scenario. They may not have the distance gap, but they may still have the low income, the low resources, and may not have access to the same opportunities. So two different, but yet the same in terms of the economics of it. But if you bring these parents together, or you find a way to bring them together, you find different resources for them to communicate and to integrate with each other. And I'm sure they will find the same value in education that the rest of us do. It just depends of what that community looks like, and they each will have a strength. And supporting that strength, learning about who they are, their stories, um, that helps us and the community and the school. And you can find support with each other. Educators and parents, um, how they want to get involved. You can ask parents more often than not. We're always asking certain types of questions. They should be asked how they want to get involved in their community, what they would like to do, what they would like to see, get inside of what they believe they want. Because each community is going to be different. You're going to have diversity and culture, and like we mentioned before, in a lot of different areas, and that creates opportunity when you ask these questions, to engage them in the process. Acknowledging the diversity that exists within the school is really important in your community, because many communities are going to have maybe one or two, but some communities have 5, 10 different subgroups of cultural groups that can come together and create an opportunity for them to serve in our schools. So breaking down those barriers is really, really important. Um, and that's why getting to knowing the families, getting to know their stories, that's how those barriers are kind of broken, to find out more about what they want and how they can better serve our students and help them succeed. This is another activity which I thought parents can group themselves in and talk about this. As you reflect on family and community, can you write down what strengths support student learning in your school community? Um, you put family strengths on one side and community strengths. And as parents reflect on the question, they can really gather a lot of information about their families, what their strengths are, and what the community strengths are, and bring those together. Maybe there were some that we didn't know about, and the same with the community, and they can bridge together. The whole idea is to be able to have a conversation, to bring parents together and talk about what they see it through their eyes. The roles of for family and community engagement. The role of family and community can be very broad, um, from helping the children learn at home, participating in school activities, being part of the decision making process, collaborating in student learning. These are all ways that family and community can engage um, in school, but the parent decides how to do it. And this could also be an activity that can be done with parents and school, and in groups, when you can actually ask them if they want to be helping the children learn at home, if they want to participate in school activities, what kind of activities, being part of the decision making process, if they want to participate in the meetings with administrators, if they want to, if there are decisions being made and they can be part of it, they have the knowledge to be able to participate, or learn to have the knowledge to participate. Collaborating in student learning and learning the process. Those are ways that parents can always participate, and they can among themselves investigate through questions how to participate and get involved. So it's important to coordinate all of these things. with the administrators, with the school, to be able to break all of these items that you want to break down to get to know your community, your families, getting to know them, and be able to put a plan in action to approach each of those. And that takes obviously great deal of collaboration, working together and building trust and taking those first steps and a lot of follow through, because that's really, really important. And when you do that, then your families are going to feel empowered. They're going to have some knowledge. They're going to feel confident to participate. All that knowledge can be given to the parents, and many of them who may not feel comfortable will feel comfortable to be able to participate, especially when it comes to decision making processes and things that are happening in the school that require a little more learning about the language and academic language, etc. Building trusting relationships through communication. Communication is essentially the greatest part of everything we do every day when it comes um, to school, home, and community. Because without that, we have nothing. So communication is really your building bridge to the parent, to the family, and the community. And that is extremely relevant. It's really, really, really important. So you have your basic communication that we get from schools, from our teacher, from the things that are happening in the district. But then you have the cross-cultural communication is more relevant to the relationships, because you need to build these um, with the different cultures that exist within your community, your school community, and your community. So how and when I mean cross-cultural communications, it's how we simply communicate. So the cultural influences of how we communicate, it's the mannerisms that we have, our tone of voice, our space between speakers. Those are little things that we sometimes notice when we're speaking to someone. So acknowledging those different ways of communicating is really important for parents who may be reluctant to participate and engage. So communicating is not just the words that we're saying, but how we're saying them, how we, the faces that we make, the movements of our bodies. All of those things are cultural inferences that can determine many things. So we need to acknowledge that, because everything does matter when it comes to approaching parents. Um, it's also very important and critical that schools acknowledge families with their cultural values by welcoming them, providing them important communication. If they are not, if their English is not their first language, acknowledging that acknowledging that group, but also having materials that are bilingual or translated in a relevant way that they can understand it and they feel like they can participate and feel welcome in that community. That's really important. Inviting role models. You know, you have, um, I know one of the schools that I know, um, on career day, they actually get parents from their own community, um, in a very diverse community, to come in and talk about what it's like to be a plumber, a doctor, a lawyer, physical therapist, all these things that are really relevant to our students in the school. But seeing all these different faces, different cultures, like a real diverse group of individuals that they're going to be one day in their working adult life. So that's important. Bringing into the classroom, I mean, you're going to have a wealth of resources within your own community. And that's important because you don't have to sometimes go outside. You can bring the parents that you have within your district. Being careful of how words are used, how something is said, is as important as what is said. And that goes also into the cross-cultural, how we say things um, is really, really important. So remembering that as part of your communication, um, that's how something is said is as important as what is said. This is an activity as well, which I thought was really good to do with parents. Um, and it includes the trust part. A lot of times in communities who lack the parent engagement is, that trust isn't fully there, and this is really good to have. Um, when you think of a parent whom you trust, um, write you can write trustworthy traits. So what you can do is parent that I trust. You have parent that I don't trust, and parents who trust me. So you have sort of like a 2 by 3 column. And those things include, in the trusting part, benevolence, the confidence that someone um, or something is cared for. That's what it means. Reliability, the confidence that you can depend on another person to come through for you. Competence, um, the belief in another person to perform the task required. Honesty, a person's integrity, character, and authenticity. And openness, the extent to which relevant information is not withheld. Um, so if you put them in like a cross check and you think of a parent whom you trust, that's a skill for building trust. And that trust begins among not just with the parents, but it also with the school. Between the first person that you contact is your teacher, student parent relationship, and then among each other. And this is a nice skill because its purpose is to help build trust among ourselves and with the school, the individuals, teachers, because they're your first contact, then the staff, and so on. Engaging in the data conversation. The data conversation, I think it's really sometimes overlooked a lot by parents, and understandably so. There's a lot of language that we may not understand. Each profession has its own language, and sometimes we can get lost in it. But the data that we get data results always is just meaningful to parents in a different way. But which data is then meaningful, right, to the success of our students? And if the data is available, what it should be addressed in that conversation. So the data does reveal snapshots. We need to understand the results. We need to develop a plan with those results, and you monitor progress. You measure progress with it. The data conversations mostly happen at parent-teacher conference. We have a lot of that happening right on our parent-teacher conference. So building that communication is crucial because it helps us understand what our child is about. And that's when communicating becomes even more important. Understanding the meaning of the data is important. Data conversations can happen on a large scale or a small scale. but our first contact with it is when we see our teachers. Um, and that's important for all the students, and understanding that diverse communities may have issues with this, and that's when the integration of language and translating becomes so important. Some schools do parent-teacher conferences at all levels, including middle and high school, by appointment. And I think that's fantastic, because then you really do have an opportunity to be able to see um, a cross section of your child, especially when they're in a you're in a multicultural or really diverse um, community. These are some terms and definitions, which I won't go into right now, but these are really for you to look at, because I think it's important to have some information as what do terms mean, and how they're used in education. And this is just a worksheet that refers to data conversation. When you're having a parent-teacher conference, then you can talk about what is the purpose of the data conversation: to gather information, guiding improvement, finding solutions. It could be all of them. And what data is being shared? Was it your quarterly report card, a student report card, the SAT, some tests that many states do, to just as a cumulative knowledge of your child or other? And what are the possible questions for conversation that you may have, and the outcome of the conversation? So to go in with a plan. I think it takes a real confident and smart school leader to build a strong and genuine bond with students, families, and community. And the way that works in real sync communication with all three. And in turn, it is our responsibility, to our duty, right, as parents, to build support, school and at home, and to work together in working with parents and being part of the school community that creates a great support for students. And to bring it all together, it is just 4 points, which I took from a teacher in Massachusetts. You examine the biases that we have, we build trust, you take the first steps, and you follow through. And that's really a school parent build of a community that can really communicate together. But most of all, building that trust, taking the first steps, and really, really following through. And that concludes my presentation. If anyone has questions.
Thank you so much, Melina. We truly appreciate it. Again, just like Melina said, if there are any questions, now is the time to pose them. Okay, I'm not seeing any.
Crickets.
It's very quiet.
Nothing. No one has anything. Comments? Anything to contribute?
Hi, this is Terry, President of Delaware PTA. How is everyone?
Hi, Terry.
Good, thank you.
Hi.
Good.
I just want to say I thought it was a fantastic presentation. Definitely a lot of great information. I know this is one of the reasons why I wanted to get on tonight, and I shared with our membership, because this is an area that we have definitely struggled with at the state level as well at the local level. So I feel like this information I want to be able to take back and share with my board to, kind of help us, get a better understanding of different ways that we can improve family engagement. And it's funny because I just earlier today left a meeting with, I chartered a new PTSA at one of our high schools.
Congrats.
And thank you.
Yay. Wonderful.
Thank you. And one of the questions that came up from one of the new officers was about this topic exactly that you guys talked about tonight, family engagement, and she shared stories of how they've struggled to engage parents, and we know that that engagement typically drops off a little bit as we get from elementary to middle to high school. And they were looking for different strategies that they could use, to engage families. And this particular school is a charter school, and it draws from all 3 counties in the state, which, makes it difficult to engage parents when they're coming from all over the place. So I think that the information you provided in terms of, not only meeting parents where they're at and recognizing and valuing their schedules, but also incorporating that diversity piece, I think is just so key. Because I think that's, at least for us in Delaware and at our local level, I think that's where we lose a lot of engagement, because we don't have the resources, and some of our schools don't have the resources to provide. Like, we struggle just with Spanish interpreters. We've got a school that's primarily Spanish population, and trying to work with them to translate materials. The staff and the teachers, they say they don't have time to do this for PTA. But we don't have anyone on our board that can do it. So you made some great points. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I actually want to comment to everything that you have contributed. I think it's wonderful that you guys have come together and chatted and move forward. And the obstacles that you're facing at the moment, make sure that you reach out within your community. There may be resources outside of the school that you, together with your superintendent and building leaders, sit down and have this conversation, because it really is a conversation that allows you to have a 2-way and 3-way with community members, and say, we want to be able to support our children, all of our children in our district, and we have cultural diversity, language diversity, economic diversity, and we need your help. And you can start very small and then branch out, but making sure that you're at the table together having the conversation is really, really important, and to making sure that they are working with you, that you are all working together.
Terry, I wanted to add too, I'm not sure if you guys have the school board structure and things like that. I'm on the school board in my town. I know that our school district, we hire translators. Schools, without a doubt, if they're not translating materials, and some things obviously not right, but I'm assuming all schools are translating their information. And so with our school board, I know that the superintendent hires translators from all types of languages. And it has to be public knowledge. So in our school board agendas, we see a list of those translators. And a lot of times I'll recognize names as local parents. So maybe that is another way to kind of tap into different people that might be able to help. You might be able to find people to help translate, material, people who may want to volunteer. And I think the one thing Milena has been really, really good with New York State PTA is really teaching or helping PTAs figure out how to find the data. You need to know what your community is made up of. And so you can know what your languages that you need to have information in, and maybe even have like a communication toolkit. PTA may have that online, I believe. So there are some resources out there where you can create or duplicate good, really communication toolkits where you can share with your individual PTAs or your state PTA and say, hey, this is how we need to help our units and councils, or however your PTAs are made up of, share information and get information to our families. If we're not communicating in the languages which our families are built in, how are we really communicating? How are schools really getting the message? And I know more and more schools are doing it. So I think even if the school doesn't want to do it, or the district doesn't want to do it, it's good to sit down and say, hey, how are you doing doing it so that you can get some ideas from the school district or the schools.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great point, and I think that actually would provide, for us, with a couple of the units specifically that we're dealing with, we have been able to get a parent here and there to help, but no one to really, commit. In the school says that they can't share their resources, that it takes away from them. So we do have the school boards, and we have not gone to them yet. So I think that's a great idea to actually use this as a strategy for increasing family engagement, and partnerships, trying to partner with the school board and doing, like you said, saying, hey, even if you can't provide us with this resource, how are you getting the resource? And at least start that conversation. If we could get a partnership with PTA and our school boards and agree to, provide these documents, this information in the languages that are necessary in specific areas, that's a great starting point.
Remember that also that schools do bear that responsibility to communicate with their families, and part of that responsibility, and they obviously every school is going to know, and you can find out the composition of your district, like um, Antoinette mentioned, when you find out all these breakdowns, but they do bear that responsibility that they need to be able to communicate with these parents in order to have them as partners, engaging and maximizing the education that their children are receiving. There's, everything to gain by doing that. And I fully understand that, every dollar you have in a district is spent in the most resourceful way that you can. But that is a conversation that you can have. I always say the respectful conversation that you can have with your board members, the superintendent, but they need to be able to provide that for you. Resources. They need to have somebody. And many districts do this. They hire within, as as part of their being resourceful. They can hire people who are bilingual, and they can do many of these forms and help their community by sending out information that is bilingual, because that is essential.
Yeah.
I wanted to add to Kim Blasiak is on. She's our engagement coordinator. I know she did share too. New York State PTA has reached out to National PTA to help with translating materials in other languages. And I think if other PTAs across also reach out, it really will show the need for a greater level of support in regards to translating documents. One other point I wanted to say, and I know I work in New York City, a lot of our schools have family, like parent rooms. Whereas when a parent comes into the building and they're looking for some sort of support, any sort of communication, there's a specific person that is hired. Ours are called parent coordinators that tend to them. Whether they're there to see a teacher, they always meet with the parent coordinator first. And that parent coordinator actually has like a family center or a parent room where there's coffee, there's refreshments, there's things and resources and all sorts of things to kind of help families feel welcome in the school building. So I think a good part of making families feel comfortable and wanting to communicate more is making sure that all of our school buildings are family friendly, and they provide resources and things that really tap into helping families. And not all families really know how to communicate with schools. So maybe if PTAs are giving workshops, and they don't have to be anything long, but giving workshops on, hey, this is how you can communicate with your school. This is how, you figure out how to help your child, how to connect what's happening in school with the home life the same way. Because everybody, I think, needs some help. Not all families understand how, to help their children study or to do homework. So collaborating with schools on those particular areas, I think will make sure that our schools are embracing families, and families feel embraced, and they feel like, hey, they're very welcome. They can come into the school. They can really seek support in all sorts of ways. I'm not sure if anybody else had any comments or questions. We are getting ready to hit the 8:30 mark in a minute. Do we have anyone else that wanted to say something or ask a question? Or Melena, do you have anything you want to add to kind of close us out?
I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to do this and reach out to as many parents as always my wish as I possibly can, and say that this is a partnership. It is not one-sided. It is, and it must be a partnership in the sense of the school, the parents, to work together and sit down always and have conversations about what they feel both sides need from their families, and to work together to maximize achievement, student achievement. It really is a partnership. You can't do without it. Schools can't do it alone. Parents can't do it alone. They must come together. They must find the research. You have to essentially do some digging, some looking up information. The most basic one, is knowing who lives where you live and who they are and what they do. It's so important because then you can have meaningful conversations, as you said, Antoinette. New York National PTA has a lot of bilingual information for parents out there that may need basic resources to communicate with parents. And that is really important as we become more and more not just culturally diverse, but diverse in general. Pay attention to who you're with at school, talk to parents, engage in conversation, ask them questions, invite them in, be friendly, be open-minded, and always be open to anything because you never know who you may come across that could be that life savior for you for your next meeting or for your next board member or for the next person who's going to help you, and become a member. We are always appreciative of everything that every single parent does to help out in a small way, whether it's an hour or 2 or 5 or 10. It doesn't matter. Be part of the process, be a member, be engaged, love all children, work for them. We serve them all.
Thank you, Melena. I want to say some last, a few things. If anybody has any questions, Melena, she is at diversity at nyspta.org. Amy, who is our tech guru, she is on as well. She will be able to let us know. I know that we always post the slideshow, the presentation. So I believe
slideshow is up, and the video will be up tomorrow.
Video of this
Yes.
Webinar will be up tomorrow. Again, guys, if you have any questions, you can reach out to Melena. Please go to New York State, NYSPTA.org, not only for this webinar, this video tomorrow, the slideshow that's on tonight, but just to see what is going on in regards to family engagement, diversity, leadership. I'm the leadership development coordinator. So there's so many resources that our website has. We appreciate the time that you have taken to be with us tonight. Thank you so much, Melena, for giving us an awesome, awesome, awesome webinar. And thank you very much, Amy, for making sure we're on track and our technology is on point. I hope everyone had a good time. And please enjoy the rest of your evening. If you do need to reach out to leadership, I am leadership.development@nyspta.org. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.